Give us your ghost stories, your odd stories of the paranormal. We'll study them. We'll pick them apart. We want to believe them, but will we? We are skeptical believers.
Hey, skeptical believers, fellow spooky friends. Heather and I are back.
Hello.
This time, we're going to talk about this forest. We are refraining from calling it the nickname that everybody has for it. So we're just going to call it by its name, which is Aokigahara Forest.
Right on.
I think I did that.
I think you nailed it.
But first, you guys should know that I intend to start making more YouTube episodes, and I've kind of got categories for them. So this one, of course, is Skeptical Believers. And I'm also going to do Spook of the Day, where I just kind of find a ghost story that I like, or a spooky thing, or it even could be like if something happens at my house, I might make that the Spook of the Day, and those will be like 5 to 10 minutes long at the most, and just do those every day and stay spooky. And then Scary Stories with Cynthia Sear, of course, is going to be me reading spooky stories, similar to what happens on the podcast. And then my ghost stories will be me telling you guys all these crazy experiences that I have. Also similar to the podcast, except that when I have new ones, of course, it'll be new material. But I have to wait for the spooks to, come and find me.
Yeah.
So just letting you guys know those things are in the future. Spook of the Day should start up soon, I hope. So, or actually, by the time you see this, it might already be happening. I just thought of that.
That's true. Yeah.
It's the magic of YouTube.
Yes, ma'am.
So how are you today, Heather?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get into this forest.
Yes, girl.
Forest of magical wonders that aren't great.
Yeah. Aokigahara Forest, from what I could find on it, is beautiful. Beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
It's right at the base of Fuji Mountain and Mount Fuji.
Right.
Fuji Mountain. You know.
We knew what you were talking about.
There you go. Anyway, it's gorgeous. I guess there was an eruption, and all of this forest grew on top of a volcanic rock that happened from the eruption. And so it's really unstable, unlevel. There are holes randomly, like it's easy to get hurt. So they have trails, and they want you to stay on the trails and hike, and it's kind of a tourist attraction and stuff. But it also has a darker attraction. So people go there to end their lives. And so it's got a rough nickname because of that we've chosen not to really focus on. But we're going to talk today about, it is Skeptical Believers. So Heather and I are going to decide whether we think that this forest actually is haunted, or if it's just the lore and the stories that are making it seem like it is.
Yes, and that was something that I kind of realized as I started to do the research. I think I thought that the going theory was that people choose this as a place to end their lives and that there's some paranormal reason why. But actually, the question is just, is this a haunted forest? I think is the question. I don't think anybody really is saying that there's some paranormal reason why it is a life-ending. Should we entirely avoid the word suicide this entire time? Should we not say it at all?
I don't know.
Well, I don't know how YouTube feels about it, but I mean, that is a trigger warning.
They probably don't like it, but yes.
We're going to be talking.
Warning. Yeah.
And lest we not forget, trigger warning, discussions of suicide. So now the
There you
word
go.
has been said and written right in this video. Yay.
Nailed it.
Yep.
Listen, yeah, they're calling it the suicide forest. Yeah, I love that it's the Aokigahara. No, Aokigahara
Yeah.
means sea of trees. I love
It is.
that.
Well, it actually technically doesn't mean sea of trees. Sea of trees translates to a different Japanese word, which is also
Oh.
used as a word for the a name for the forest.
Mm-hmm.
But sea of trees is at once a practical and very poetic name. In fact, we could just call it the Sea of Trees if we want, which would be easier for us to pronounce than Aokigahara. If you
could
like,
do that.
Cindy. Yeah.
Yes, that would be lovely. And I did see on YouTube, I did see things where people were trying to say that if you go into the forest when you are feeling low, that the energies and the spirits there will draw you in and they will try to get you lost in the forest and convince you to take your life. That's what I heard a few different times on things.
Sure.
That and there's some kind of a Japanese legend that there are spirits there who that's their sole purpose. They were never human, like they're evil spirits, and they draw people in to try and get them to kill themselves so that they will be trapped there forever with them. So
right on.
And then did you read about way back in history when there was some kind of a famine or something, that families that were struggling, they would take their mother who was elderly, and I read a thing where the son would strap his mother to his back and carry her deep into the forest, and she would break twigs and stuff off on the way so that he could find his way back to civilization, but he would go deep in the forest and leave his mother there to die, and that she was okay with it. Like that was considered a thing that they did during this troubling time. So, I don't know.
Yes, I did hear something similar where it was during times of famine, poorer families would take their elderly and leave them in the forest to basically die. A few more things about Aokigahara Forest, the Sea of Trees. It is an incredibly dense forest. So much so that there's almost no light, apparently, that comes through. So they say. I think at certain portions of the forest. Now, I did watch some videos of people hiking in Aokigahara, and during the day, you can see light. So there might be portions of the forest where it's way more dense and not so much light gets through.
Yeah.
It's
I saw where people were talking about, it's cooler in the forest, and it's the spirits and the energy, and I thought, this is a dense forest. I mean, I'm from Florida. I've been in plenty of forests where you get in parts and the cool breeze will come through, and it's just because of the moisture in the forest and the lack of sunlight and stuff. I don't know if I would call that paranormal.
Sure. No, I'm certain that there are perfectly normal physical reasons for wind or light being in even a densely forested area.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, it is Japan's most frequent suicide location. For the year 2010, police recorded over 200 attempted suicides, 54 of which were completed. It is worthy of note that these primarily happen in March at the end of the Japanese fiscal year. The most common methods are drug overdose and hanging, and they no longer publicize any of the suicides in this area because they're trying to, I think, ultimately have people stop coming there to end their lives. You know, that would be ideal. They have signage up in the forest that prompts people to seek help and call a hotline if they're thinking about it, you know. And yes, we talked about ties to Japanese folklore and that some believe the forest to be haunted because of all of the deaths that have happened there. Quick side note. I wondered as I was looking into this, how many of these deaths are accidental but called a suicide. Now, I mean, obviously, if somebody's hanged themselves, it's hard to call that an accident.
Mm-hmm.
Were some of those foul play and we don't know it, right?
I
Were
mean, that's
there
always possible.
exactly, and then an overdose could very easily be accidental. So I wonder about that as well. And then, of course, there are going to be times because of how dense the forest is, because of the volcanic residue, which has magnetic qualities to it, it can mess up compasses and cell phones, apparently. So you can go get lost in there and never find your way out, and I think succumb to the elements just
Mm-hmm.
as easily as any other thing in this really dense
I did.
forest.
I did watch a YouTube video of a guy who lives near the forest and he hikes in there regularly and he even does some work as a guide for people. And he was taking a guy through there and they were recording it for this guy's YouTube channel. And the whole time they were hiking for hours, I assume, he kept saying, "Yep, still signal. Yep, still see. There's nothing wrong. Like compasses work, phones work,
Okay,
GPS
okay.
works. Like he was kind of irritated that there was this rumor that they don't work. He said the only way he could get a compass not to work is if you just hold it too low to the ground because the ground is volcanic rock and
Right.
that can affect it. So he said, so long as you're not holding it very close to the ground, it should work. So I don't
Interesting.
know.
So
He
here's
said
where,
that.
because
I
we
don't know.
talked a little bit about this before we hit record, which is it was hard to find specifics. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
general stories. This situation happens all the time here, but there's no specific stories. So it's like I couldn't find any specific story of someone saying, yes, I was using a compass and it stopped working, or my cell phone quit on me, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go deep enough and dense enough into this forest, I could easily imagine a cell phone losing its signal.
Sure.
That's not
Yeah.
totally unreal to me. But maybe your compass would work just fine if you were,
Yeah.
I don't know, if you'd taken a hike into an uncharted area.
Yeah.
So,
I
but
found
that's good to
three
know.
stories. I found three stories that are supposedly true ghost stories that people said happened to them. But,
Okay.
I have no way of verifying that. But these three stories, two of them involve the person being lured into the forest by a little girl. And
Okay.
then another one, they were lured into the forest by a man who brought them to a cabin that they said was obviously homemade. It did not have store bought furniture and that kind of thing. And that when they escaped from said cabin, they told the authorities about it, and the authorities said, "There's no cabin there. You're
Hmm.
mistaken, or you hallucinated, or whatever."
Mm,
So I don't know.
I feel like those three people were lured by a man who erected his own cabin that the authorities maybe didn't know about. That's easily not a ghost.
Yeah.
Or all three of those people were on hallucinogens, but I don't know. I don't know when anybody ever hallucinates the same thing as somebody else at the same time.
Hmm.
There is this
They
phenomenon
were
of
slightly different, but yeah,
okay. Yeah, I was just going to
I
say
don't
there
know.
is like that phenomenon of mass halluciniz what's the word
Hallucinations.
hallucinations. Wow. Wow, thank you. Mass
Uh,
hallucinations, which to me is when scientists come in and they're like paranormal things don't exist. Therefore, it was a mass hallucination. And I'm like, really? Cuz that's a thing? 100 perfectly sane people suddenly all having the same random weird vision that nobody else can see.
yeah,
It's not a
yeah,
thing. I'm sorry, it's not a thing.
yeah.
Anyway, went off the rails there. Here's a map of Japan and a little indication of where the Aokigahara forest is for reference.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Uh Cindy, I have a question.
Okay.
Folklore. It is also known as the demon forest, thought to be haunted by demons, as you said.
Mm-hmm.
A belief that those who enter will never return, which has obviously happened numerous times for various different reasons. We talked
Right.
about the compass cell phone thing being a myth, and then we talked
Mm-hmm.
about the mythology during times of famine. Are there any other like very specific stories that you came across?
No, I found a general mention of monks. I guess way back in the day, they said that monks would go deep into the forest to complete their mummification ritual. Because,
Mm-hmm.
monks would try to eat certain foods to cause their bodies to mummify, and they would like sit in the lotus position or whatever at the like it's 1,000 days of eating this one diet and then 1,000 more days of eating a worse diet, and then after those 2,000 days of doing that, they go off where they want to be a mummy, and they go into this sitting position and they meditate until they die. And supposedly what they eat causes their body to mummify. So there I found some rumors that this forest was a place that they would go and try to do that. But
Okay.
I couldn't confirm that because, again, just like you said, I couldn't find any specific stories to go by. Just
Yeah,
random general
it is.
things.
It is a bit tricky in that regard. Now, there was one specific upside down doll nailed to a tree,
Oh yeah,
which I saw
I
a
saw
video
that.
of. I was
Did
like,
you see the one where the guide guy found it, and he said he is Japanese, this
mhm,
guy I watched, and he said that in Japan, nailing a doll to a tree upside down is a symbol of rejecting society. So he said he was
yeah,
not surprised at all to find that near a camping site where obviously somebody was there contemplating killing themselves. He said they did it probably on purpose to symbolize that they were rejecting society.
that is interesting. I got skeptical when I was watching that video because I was like, he's really making a lot of assumptions. This person that they followed into the forest, the trail they followed, or whatever, the string or the ribbon that
Mm-hmm.
people like to use to keep their way, he just assumed the person was there planning to take their own life. I'm like, would somebody set up a whole campsite? Like, could this have just been a homeless person who wanted somewhere off grid to live where he wouldn't be bothered? Could it have been
Mm.
somebody that's just an extreme camper? I mean, are those possibilities? We jumped right to suicide, but then we didn't, there was no body. I mean, to be morbid, he didn't come across
Mm-hmm.
that. He just can't. And then I was like, did you nail that doll to that tree beforehand because you knew you were going to come here? Like, it was not super convincing to me. And I feel like he
Yeah.
jumped to a lot of assumptive conclusions there,
If you take
personally.
him for what he's saying, it could be that he did that because he did say that he walks through that area often to look for bodies, and he does sometimes find them. So maybe he's actually found bodies enough times that he just figures when he finds a
Yeah,
campground that that's what is about to happen. You know,
that is a good point. There's
um,
probably something to that for sure. Another thing that people report is having their tape mysteriously cut,
mm,
right? Which I thought, okay, this could be
yeah.
another human being sadistic. It could also be the tape or that ribbon they use isn't very sturdy. You see a lot of that ribbon there. I'm like, that doesn't look. It's not like they tied a rope or something. It's this flimsy
Hmm.
ribbon that just could brush against a branch or snag on something and easily come apart. I think. And if you're hiking through
Hmm.
really rough brambles or something, I think your tape could get cut pretty easily there. That was
Or
my
what if
theory.
an animal walks through it? You know, like do they have deer there and
Yep.
stuff? I don't know.
Well, I'm glad you asked that because there was one single specific story I could find, and here's what happened. Uh, a guy is in the woods. He hears somebody screaming. He follows the sound of the scream and finds a dead body at the end of that, and that person had been dead for quite some time. So they go, oh, it
Mm.
couldn't have been this guy. It must have been his ghost. To which I said, I wonder what wildlife resides in the Aokigahara forest.
Yeah.
One of the things that resides in that forest is foxes. Shall we listen to what a fox sounds like, Cindy?
We shall.
Here we go. I'm going to play this for you as soon as it loads up super slowly. Here it is.
That's terrible. Who hurt
Yeah,
that fox?
it's terrifying. It's terrifying is what it is. It's
Good
so,
night.
but I can see how that could easily be mistaken for human screams.
I would think that if it was late at night and I was in a suicide forest and I heard that, I'd be like, peace out, man. I'm out.
Yeah,
I'm good.
forget it.
Like,
Oh, and just to that point of it being a very common destination, the most common one in Japan for suicide, the number one location in the world where people commit suicide is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco.
yeah.
I wonder if like 95% of that is just because they're like, I live in San Francisco, this sucks. But
Oh. I've never been there.
I'm
so
kidding.
I can't say.
I'm kidding. But that it's just it's one of these things where I think if you're contemplating doing that and you know, hey, a lot of people have come to this one location and successfully ended their lives. Well, this might be, if I want to really make sure, and this is a for real thing, you're going to want to go somewhere where you know it can happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, not, it's kind of morbid to think about, but
Right.
so you're going to be drawn to a place where you know people have already gone and taken their own lives. So I think that has a lot to do with, and I think they're right to stop publicizing it because that's
Yeah.
kind of what's probably drawing people there for that purpose.
I
And there's
did
a
read
lot
that
of
their suicide numbers have gone down in the last few years.
that is nice to hear, and I bet you that's because they stopped publicizing it. I bet you anything. So that would be that's nice to hear. First of all, and second of all, there is a lot of kind of awesome, cool stuff about Aokigahara that it just seems like a nice place to go visit in general if you're not scared of the apparitions.
Yeah.
So that was the last point I really had, which is people report seeing white figures. And a show called Destination Truth from the Sci-Fi Channel supposedly did record an actual apparition. I could not find a video of that anywhere. And I stopped short on signing up for yet another streaming service to go try to find out. So, if that is, I would love to see that footage because here's the one place where I am less skeptical because I refuse to believe the number of people who have been lost to this forest, never to be seen again, the number of people who apparently historically have been taken there and left to die, the number of people that have taken their own lives. There's at least one ghost in this forest. I refuse to believe anything else. So, but it's hard to sit here and say, hey, look, this was definitely an apparition in this video because I couldn't find the video anywhere.
Right.
And I couldn't find any other exactly specific story about somebody seeing an apparition. So
I tried really hard to find some information on volcanic rock because I know there's a theory out there that limestone can kind of amplify a haunting, and I wanted to know if volcanic rock can do that too. The best that I could find is that volcanic rock does have some crystallization in it. So it has crystals in it. And so those are kind of rumored to amplify hauntings or to amplify energy, I should say. So I thought, well, maybe. I mean, but that's the closest I could get. I couldn't find any website that would say, yes, volcanic rock is tied to paranormal experience or activity.
Interesting. Yeah, I just Googled, is there limestone in Aokigahara Forest? And I'm not seeing any answer, just direct answer jump out at me. And I will not put the viewer through me going through every Google search result to try to find out. So
I did my best to
Anyway.
find out if volcanic rock was an issue, and I couldn't find any information other than that because of the way it's formed, there are crystals within it, small crystals. So,
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
sometimes can somebody hiking along in this forest think they see an apparition and it's not one? Sure, but I'm at on the entire phenomenon overall, I'm at like 5 out of 10 skeptics because I
That's
feel
so
like there are definitely
funny.
some ghosts here.
That's what I am too. So I believe strongly in energies being left behind, especially can you imagine the emotional energy involved in taking your own life?
Hmm.
That's a deep, big moment. And so I just cannot fathom that there wouldn't be some energy there from that. And of course, sensitive people who go into that forest would for sure feel that, I think.
Yeah.
I would. I'm sure I would. So 5 out of 10 skeptics for me. The five skeptics being, yes, I'm sure that forest is probably haunted, but the
Yes.
other five, meaning the forest is drawing people in paranormally to kill themselves. I can't get there.
No, me
I
neither. I
can't.
think it's just more a matter of the fact that it's been popularized, the fact of
Hmm.
the time of year when it typically happens, and it's going to be, people who are financially not doing well. And I think
Yeah.
I looked at some of the sort of demographics, if you will, and it's usually men of a certain age. It's usually during the end of the fiscal year, so those are all things to think about, I think,
Hmm.
as well.
Now, in the show description, in the show notes of this, I am going to put a link in case you or somebody that you know is considering taking their own lives. I want you to go to that link and click it because there is help. You don't need to do that. There are people in this world who love and care about you and would be devastated if they lost you. So please don't go that route. That is a very permanent solution to a temporary problem. So if you feel like you're in that situation, click the link. You don't have to do that. Life can get better. It will get better. So
Absolutely.
just
Absolutely.
just saying. And I have been there. I don't know about you, Heather, but I'm open. I'm willing to say I have been in bouts of depression where I have been suicidal in my life a few times before. And I know what that feels like. And you don't have to go through that alone. So click the link.
Do it.
That's all I'm going to say about that. So, if you like these episodes that we're doing, please consider subscribing so that you don't miss any. And as I said, I'm going to be doing other types of episodes too. That'll be fun, spooky things. And so definitely subscribe, click like, because that helps us a lot to get some more attention. And we're
Yeah.
podcasters, so we
We're
are attention
podcasters.
seeking.
You can also listen to our podcast. I can't believe we haven't mentioned it yet.
Right? What were we thinking? I mean,
Unbelievable.
True Hauntings and Scary Stories,
That's
right?
right. And then
And
I've
then
got
yours.
two podcasts, Watching Netflix Without You. If you are into Netflix original films and having short but detailed discussions about them that spoil them, check us out. Also, the Politics Free podcast, where we do game night with my brother. It's a bunch of sibling rivalry and fun, and we do not talk about anything that matters. We intentionally do not address any hot topics, political issues, or anything like that, so that you have a guaranteed place where you can come and just unwind and you don't have to worry, hopefully, about getting triggered. Although that said,
Love
we've
it.
been playing Stuff Happens for our last few episodes, and it's all like, what's worse? Hanging upside down by your toenail for 2 hours or
Ooh.
getting your arm sliced off by a chainsaw. So we try to
So
take
you
a
may be
comical
triggered.
look at all of these horrible things we talk about. We do, but it's just supposed to be a little fun to unwind and
Yeah.
not have to worry about the things that are happening in the world for just a short little time each week.
Yeah. And we need to plug our editor's podcast as well.
Oh.
Because he does an amazing job, and his podcast is called Milk Crates and Turntables. And him and his co-host do a deep dive into all things music. I think mostly rock and roll, but pretty much any genre, I'm pretty sure. But it's really good. It's good. They do a deep dive. They talk about stuff I didn't even know was a thing, and I really like it. So I definitely think you should check that out. So there's our shameless plugs for the day.
Yes, indeed. Also, don't forget to hit the notification bell. Ding, ding. Am I pointing
Because
at it?
we would not. I have no idea, girl.
I just pointed to like every possible place.
Yeah.
It's in one of those places.
Click the
Subscribe.
bell. We would not be good YouTubers if we did not say, hit like and subscribe and click the bell.
That's true. We save it all for the end. Usually everyone's doing that at the beginning, but
We're probably doing it wrong.
we're old.
I don't know.
It's fine. We're also making long videos. I don't know. We'll see
Yeah.
how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
These are our deep dives,
Yeah.
into the spooky things. So at least we have an episode where we were 5 out of 10 skeptics, right?
Yeah, because we've been
I'm
10 out of
proud of
10 for the
us.
other two. So
Yeah. Yep. All right, folks. We will see you next time. If you have an idea for something you want to see if we're skeptical about, leave it in the comments and we will check it out. Till next time. Bye.
Ooh.